You're standing in the middle of a Spartan camp. You're 7 years old. Around you, shouting, the smell of sweat and the sound of wood striking wood. Your childhood just ended, and survival has begun. If you thought you knew what discipline meant, you were wrong. Today we're breaking down what life in Sparta actually looked like from the inside. From brutal upbringing to what would really happen if you stood in the front ranks of a Spartan phalanx. This is the story of a civilization that changed the world, and the price they paid for it. Imagine being born into a society where your life is never entirely your own. From childhood, you are expected to become part of something bigger than yourself. You are taught discipline. You are trained to endure hardship. And if war comes, you are expected to stand beside the men around you and hold the line. This is Sparta. But forget the movie version for a moment. Real Spartan life was more complicated than endless battles, red capes, and warriors shouting dramatic speeches. So what was it actually like to be born, grow up, and live as a Spartan? To find out, let's imagine that you were born there around 450 BC. Your life would begin in one of the most unusual societies in the ancient Greek world. And if you were a boy from a full Spartan citizen family, your entire future would be shaped by one thing: the state. For the first years of your life, you would live with your family, but even your childhood would exist under the expectations of Spartan society. Sparta wanted strong citizens and capable soldiers. Ancient writers even claimed that newborn children were inspected and that babies considered physically unfit could be abandoned. But historians debate exactly how common or systematic this practice really was. What we do know is that Spartan society placed enormous value on physical strength, discipline, and military readiness. And for a Spartan boy, everything changed at around the age of 7, because this was when you entered the Agoge, the famous Spartan education and training system. Your comfortable childhood was over. The Agoge was designed to shape boys into disciplined members of Spartan society. You would train alongside other boys your age. You would exercise, compete, learn basic reading and music, and most importantly, learn how to function as part of a group. Sparta did not want warriors who thought only about themselves. It wanted men who could follow orders and remain beside their comrades when things became difficult. Life was intentionally demanding. According to ancient sources, boys were given simple clothing and limited comforts. They were expected to become accustomed to discomfort. The goal wasn't simply to make them physically strong. It was to teach self-control. A Spartan was supposed to remain calm under pressure, to speak briefly, to endure difficulty without complaining. This reputation became so famous that even today we use the word Spartan to describe something simple, strict, and without luxury. But there was another lesson you would learn very quickly. Your survival depended on the people around you. Forget the image of a lone Spartan warrior defeating dozens of enemies by himself. Real Greek warfare depended heavily on teamwork. Spartan soldiers fought as hoplites. Each man carried a large shield, but that shield didn't protect only him. It also helped protect the man standing beside him. Soldiers stood together in a formation known as the Phalanx. Imagine a wall of shields. Behind them, rows of spears. Every man had to stay in position. If one person panicked and broke formation, he could put everyone around him in danger. So, from childhood, Spartan training emphasized discipline and loyalty to the group. You weren't being trained to become an action hero. You were being trained to become one part of a human wall. And when you grew older, military service would become the center of your life. At around 20, a Spartan man could enter military service as an adult. But becoming a full citizen involved more than simply surviving training. One important part of Spartan life was membership in a common dining group, often called a Syssition. You ate regularly with other men. These shared meals reinforced loyalty and social bonds. Your fellow citizens were not simply neighbors. They were the same men who might one day stand beside you in battle. Even after marriage, a Spartan man's life remained closely connected to his military group. This made Sparta very different from many other Greek city-states. But there is something important that popular stories often leave out. Spartan citizens could dedicate so much of their lives to military training because other people were doing much of the work, especially the Helots. The Helots were an unfree population controlled by the Spartan state. They worked much of the agricultural land and produced the food that supported Spartan society. And they greatly outnumbered the full Spartan citizens. This created a constant problem. The Spartans were famous warriors, but they also lived with the fear of rebellion from the people they controlled. This helps explain why Spartan society became so militarized. The army was not only useful against foreign enemies, Sparta also needed to maintain control at home. There was even a controversial institution known as the Krypteia, described differently by ancient sources, which appears to have involved selected young Spartans and the violent intimidation of Helots. So, the famous Spartan lifestyle had a hidden foundation. A small group of citizens could spend much of their time preparing for war because a much larger population was forced to support their way of life. For a full Spartan citizen, the system provided status. For a helot, life could be completely different and far harsher. Now imagine that war finally comes. You march with the other Spartan soldiers. Your equipment is heavy. A large shield, body armor, a helmet, a spear, and a short sword for close combat. But your most important weapon is not something you carry. It is discipline. You stand shoulder to shoulder with the men you have known for years. Possibly since childhood, the same people you trained with, the same people you ate with. Now they are standing beside you in the battle line. When the enemy approaches, your job is simple. Do not run. Do not break formation. Stay with the group. This was one of the main reasons the Spartan army gained such a powerful reputation. Other Greek armies also used hoplite warfare, but Sparta built an entire citizen culture around military preparation. That reputation became so powerful that sometimes the idea of facing Spartans could be intimidating before the battle even began. But Spartans were not invincible. They lost battles. They surrendered on some occasions, and eventually their military dominance was broken. The legend became much larger than the reality. And what about Spartan women? Their lives were very different from those of women in many other Greek city-states. Spartan girls received physical education, and women could control and inherit significant amounts of property. Because men spent so much time involved in military life, women often had important responsibilities in managing households and estates. To outsiders, especially other Greeks, Spartan women could seem unusually independent. But this freedom existed within the expectations of Spartan society. Women were also expected to produce and raise future citizens. The entire culture revolved around maintaining the Spartan system. Men had their role. Women had theirs. The Helots had a role imposed upon them. Everyone existed inside a structure designed to keep Sparta functioning. So, would you actually want to be a Spartan? If you were a full male citizen, you would belong to one of the most respected military societies in ancient Greece. You would receive years of training. You would share a powerful sense of identity with the men around you, and your city would become famous for centuries. But the cost would be enormous. Your childhood would be heavily controlled. Your adult life would be dominated by military obligations. Your personal choices would often come second to the expectations of society, and the entire system you benefited from depended heavily on an oppressed population beneath you. Sparta created remarkable military discipline, but it also created a society that was rigid, unequal, and constantly under pressure. And perhaps the greatest irony is what happened next. The Spartans built their entire society around producing warriors. But eventually, there simply weren't enough full Spartan citizens. Their numbers declined. Military defeats weakened their power, and in 371 BC, the Spartan army suffered a devastating defeat against Thebes at the Battle of Leuctra. Sparta would never fully recover its old dominance. The society that had been built to create the perfect soldiers could not remain powerful forever. Today, more than 2,000 years later, The legend of Sparta is everywhere. Movies, games, books, the story of the 300. We imagine fearless warriors who cared about nothing except victory or death. But the real story is more interesting. Spartans were not superheroes. They were people living inside an extraordinary social system. A system that began shaping them when they were children. A system built around discipline, loyalty, warfare, and control. If you had been born a Spartan citizen, you probably wouldn't have spent every day fighting enormous battles. Most of your life would have been training, waiting, eating with the same group, following rules, and preparing for the moment when Sparta might need you, because the greatest weapon Sparta ever created wasn't the spear, it wasn't the shield, and it wasn't even the Phalanx. It was a society designed to convince you that standing beside the man next to you was more important than standing alone. And that is what it was really like to be a Spartan.